Hello viewers, tutorial 3 question 8, and we're finding the equation of the graphs that we see on screen. So the first one is a straight line which has a y-intercept of 7 and an x-intercept of 14. So a straight line has the form y equals mx plus c, where m is the gradient, which is a measure of the steepness of the line, and c is the y-intercept. So we can already see that c is going to be 7 there. The other way we could get the equation of a straight line, which is going to be similar to the way we find the equation of parabolas and cubics later on in this video, is to write it as y equals k times x minus a. So a will be the x-intercept, which is in this case going to be 14. So y equals k multiplied by x minus 14. Now it goes through the point 0, 7. So when x is 0, y equals 7. So 7 is k multiplied by x is 0 minus 14. So therefore we can say that 7 equals, the bracket has a value of negative 14 times k. So therefore k is going to be 7 over negative 14. And if we divide 7 by negative 14 we get negative a half. So this has the equation y equals negative 1/2 times x minus 14. And if we multiply that negative 1/2 into the bracket we get minus 1/2 x. Minus times minus gives us a plus. Half times 14 is 7. So that's now in y equals mx plus c form. M is minus a half, which tells us for every 1 unit it goes across, it goes down by half a unit. And 7, as we predicted, we found a value of c of minus 7, of positive 7. Okay, so that's the straight line. Now let's look at question B, which is a parabola. It has x-intercepts of negative 10 and negative 2, and it has a y-intercept of negative 200. So this is negative 200. Okay, so it's a parabola. It has some x-intercepts, so we can use the x-intercepts to find the equation. It is similar to y equals k times x minus a, except this time because we have an extra x-intercept, we have an extra bracket, and otherwise we can do it exactly the same way as we did question A, which is why we did question A in the way we did. Okay, so what's A and what's B? Those are your two x-intercepts, which are negative 10 and negative 2. So we have k times x minus negative 10, so minus negative 10 becomes plus 10, and x minus negative 2 becomes x plus 2. Okay, so we've got most of the equation of the parabola sorted out already. We just need to work out what the value of k is, which means we need to use another point, which in this case we can use the y-intercept there. So when x equals 0, y equals negative 200. So that tells us that negative 200 equals k times x is 0 plus 10 multiplied by x is 0 again plus 2. So therefore negative 200 equals k times 0 plus 10 is 10, and 0 plus 2 is 2. So we've got k times 10 times 2, so negative 200 equals k times 20, because 10 times 2 we can work that out to be 20, so therefore k is going to be negative 200 divided by 20, which is negative 10. It's an upside down parabola, so we are expecting our value of k to be negative, and if we substitute negative 10 back into that line there, we get y equals negative 10 times x plus 10 times x plus 2. So that's the equation of the parabola. When you write your final equation of the line, you are always expecting y and x to appear in your equation, but those should be the other letters. So every other letter that was in the original form, you should have found to be some kind of number. Okay, so question C, which we have there. So we have 3 x-intercepts, and we have a y-intercept of 24. The x-intercepts are -2, 1, and 4. This is a cubic. It has that S on its side sort of shape about it. So it's going to be similar to a parabola, but with an extra bracket involved. So it's going to be y equals k times x minus a, x minus b, x minus c. A, b and c are our 3 x-intercepts, which are -2, 1 and 4. So if we put that in, we get k times x minus a is going to be x minus -2, minus negative becomes plus, and then x minus b is x minus 1, and then x minus c is x minus the other x-intercept, which is 4. So we've got y equals k times x plus 2 times x minus 1 times x minus 4. Now we need to find one other point, which is when x equals, so we're talking on this line, which means we're talking about when x is 0, y equals 24. So that's a pair of x and y that can be substituted in. So we get 24 equals k times 0 plus 2 times 0 minus 1 times 0 minus 4. And when we substitute, so let's work out what those brackets are. So 24 equals k times, that's 2 times -1 times -4. And if we multiply those three numbers, we get 2 times -1 times -4 is 8. So 24 equals 8k, and that we can divide by 3 to get, divide by 8, sorry, to get k equals 3. Okay, so if k equals 3, we can put that back into this line, which gives us y equals 3 times x plus 2, x minus 1, x minus 4. Okay, great. So we've got the equation of that cubic. Now we have another cubic. So we have that function there, which has x-intercepts of -1 and 1. Only 2 x-intercepts here, but the shape is still a cubic. We can see that it's turning right on the line at the +1 intercept, which tells us that we actually can consider that to be a double intercept. So our form is the same as what we had with the other cubic, because the shape is exactly the same. Y equals k times x minus a times x minus b times x minus c. And what are our intercepts? -1 and 1. And since this is turning right on the x-axis, right on the horizontal line, we count +1 as an intercept twice on this occasion. So y equals k times, first intercept was -1, so minus a becomes +1. Second intercept is at 1, so this is going to be x minus 1, and as we said, it's turning right on this line, so count +1 twice there. So it's going to be 2 x minus 1 brackets. So we can actually write this as y equals k times x plus 1 times x minus 1 squared. Okay, so we also need one other piece of information here. We need to use when x equals 0, because we again have a nice coordinate where it crosses the vertical line. So we're again looking at x equals 0. Y is going to be +5. So if we substitute that into what we've got here, then 5 equals k multiplied by x is 0 plus 1 times 0 minus 1 squared, which is going to be k times 1, because we're working out that bracket. 0 plus 1 is 1, and then we have negative 1 squared. So 5 equals k times negative 1 squared is 1 times 1 is 1, and therefore k equals 5, which can be substituted back into that line, and that gives us y equals 5. So we've found k, x plus 1, x minus 1 squared is the equation of that particular cubic. Okay, one more shape that we're going to find on this video, one more graph to do, and it's this one. So we have 2 points that it goes through the point 0, 2, and it goes through the point 2, 128. Okay, so it's not a cubic, it's not a quadratic, and it's not a straight line. This has a horizontal line that it never crosses, and the y value keeps on getting bigger and bigger, so this keeps on getting steeper and steeper. This is an exponential graph which has the form y equals a e to the kx. So e is just a number which is 2.718 blah blah blah. A and k are two numbers that we need to find using the 2 points, and that's the job that we need to do, find a and k. Okay, so we know that it goes through 0, 0. So when x is 0, y equals 2. And if we substitute that into your y equals a e to the kx, we get 2 equals a e to the k times 0, which is, that's going to be 0 times k is 0, so therefore we've got 2 equals a e to the 0, but we know that e to the 0 equals 1, so this is going to be just a, because e to the 0 is 1, so that's a times 1, which is a, so therefore a is 2. Okay, so far so good. We already have the value of a, so we now know that y equals 2 e to the kx. And we have one other point that we can use. When x equals 2, y equals 128. So therefore, if we substitute that point into what we've got 128 equals 2 times e to the k times x is k times 2. Let's write that 2k. Now we can divide that through by 2, which will give us 128 divided by 2 is 64. So therefore 64 equals, we've divided by 2 to get rid of that 2 out the front, so we've got e to the 2k. Now we need to get rid of that e. How do we get rid of an e? We need to take the natural log of both sides, take ln of both sides. So ln of 64 equals ln of e to the 2k. And ln and e, those cancel out to leave us with 2k equals ln of 64. So therefore k is going to be ln of 64. It's divided by 2, and if we calculate that, what do we end up with? We end up with 2.079. So we've got the value of k. So let's substitute that into our y equals 2 e to the kx, and then we're done. So our equation is y equals a, we already know to be 2, e to the power of 2.079, and we've got x still in the power. Okay, so that's the equation of that graph. Thanks for watching. Over and out.